I'm Mel Stewart, and this is the SwimSwam podcast. Joining me today is perhaps the most loved man in swimming. He's the mayor of Athens. He needs no introduction. We all know who this man is. It's Jack Bauerle. How you doing, buddy?
Great, Mel. How you doing?
Good. We've been trying to get on your calendar since you made your announcement.
Yeah.
And you've been slippery. It's been tough to nail you down.
Yeah, it's funny. I've said yes to pretty much everything that was asked. Can you go this? Can you go here? Can you go there? I said sure, and done a few speeches, and I've done some. I love radio. I usually go on here for sports radio. Very seldom do we talk about swimming. We actually talk this time of year. We talk baseball, which is one of my real true loves. And no, I have been a little slippery, but I'm catching up. I'm about 200 text messages behind, but I'm getting there. And it's a good feeling that it's not easy leaving the sport, from coaching part, but as you well know, and you know better than anybody, as an Olympic medalist, gold medalist, and you stay connected no matter what. And I always use it in baseball terms. There was a great book by Jim Bouton called Ball 4. It was the first tell-all book in sports. I have about 50 books on baseball, which is stupid as heck, but he had this thing. He said, all along I thought I was the one gripping the baseball, and actually all along it was the other way around. And I sort of feel like the same way about, about swimming. So it feels like it will have a grip on me since I started when I was a little kid, right?
Oh yes. ASCA is they're gonna honor Franke Bell, who was my age group coach from North Carolina, and and for years and years after leaving the sport, I had sort of I had a dysfunctional family situation, and the pool was a form of escape. And I always said the pool is what healed me and kept me safe. Yeah. And I, thinking about Franke, that's not true. It was the coach. It's the coach who stands there and gives you purpose. Yeah. And says, hey, move in this direction. Yeah. And that's
you were with a great coach, Mel.
Yeah, she's a wonderful lady. But
she
that's
was something else.
Oh, I'm excited that she's being honored by ASCA.
Finally, it's good. It's a neat thing. And she was she never put herself out there in front of anybody. So I think she sort of went under the radar. But when I came to school in Georgia in 1970, she had coached Tommy Youngblood and Ross Bradford. They were sophomores. Ross and I were captains together when he was a senior. I was a junior, but those guys had really good technique, and she was a heck of a coach. She went
to Doc Councilman.
Yeah.
She studied Doc Councilman like, everything that he did, that's what we were getting as age groupers.
Yeah.
But so the point of my bringing that up was that it's not the pool. It's that person standing there on deck that changes your life. She changed my life. And I know that the impact that you've had has been astounding. Let me just share some stats since we have people dropping in. They might not have a personal relationship with you, but 43 seasons as head coach, longest tenured coach in Georgia athletics history. Nearly 50 years really there, because you started there as a swimmer. 16-time SEC Coach of the Year, 7-time NC2A Coach of the Year. You produced 87 Olympians, 38 Olympic medalists, 15 of them gold. And
we count 40 because even though they went to another school, when I had Natalie last year, she was with me for a couple of years, and then Andrew Wilson from Emory, and they had great backgrounds. Natalie from Florida, Andrew from John Howe, who's an unbelievable coach. And so we call it 40, but exactly University of Georgia people 38.
That's all right. It really, the interesting thing about coaches is that they care. You don't have to wear the school's colors. They care about you.
Oh yeah.
And I've always,
Natalie was funny when she came. She kept, what she did? She's so cool. So we're talking about Natalie Hinds. So I guess we have to make that loud and clear. Who's an exceptional person in every way. So I missed her, when I recruited her, and so she was working for a year and a half or two. She got a little bored with herself and what she was doing, and she texted me. She emailed me, which never works. And then she got frustrated, and then she texted me, and I'm a lot better with that. And then she finally just said, "You know what? I'm coming, and I'll see you in 2 days." So I had Natalie, and I said, Nat, this is really big of me, because you didn't come swimming. I think we would have won another 1 or 2 national championships. And she goes, well, you sent an assistant to my house. You didn't come to my house. And she had a retort immediately. And so anyhow, that was my fault.
Oh, wow.
And then Andrew Wilson, who's remarkable. He's now in Oxford getting his master's in engineering. He was the engineering student of the year when he was at Emory. And he was with me for about 2.5 years. And so we count them. I feel they're as part of me and part of this program in a way, as the kids that swam here. I mean, they came in here and they worked hard. And, I've always said I've had a really strong prejudice in my life, and I only really like the kids that work hard. But at any rate, that was an exceptional group last summer too.
Let me start 60,000 feet up, and just out of curiosity, I know how much people love you, and I know you're called the Mayor of Athens. At what point did you become the unofficial Mayor of Athens? When did that happen? Because I was in the sport. I was an athlete. We were in the same conference, and I saw you on deck. We rubbed shoulders.
Yeah.
And you weren't that big of a deal then.
No.
And I left and came back, and suddenly you were King Daddy.
Well, you know what I got to say too. Your coach Ray was always great to me. Ray Buzzard. I was a young coach coming up, and I was getting swallowed up. I had Ray in there. I had Don Gambrill, who was another guy great to me. Randy was coaching at that time. Sammy a little bit. Sammy Freeze too, but he was best friends with my brother growing up. So I knew Sammy from the age when I was like a little boy. But I'm not sure what happened. I was here so long at Georgia, but I've always had an interest in what other people do. So I think that probably changed my life more than anything else. I was always interested. I would say probably 90% of my best friends in Athens are professors of some sort. And, I have an inordinate amount of respect, and you probably do too. I mean, you were at the highest level, but I think people, when you get to the level that you were swimming, you respect people that are high levels doing anything, because you realize there's a common denominator of commitment that's just rides right on through everyone. But at any rate, I don't know how it happened. Chris Davis at Swim Atlanta refuses to come eat lunch with me here because he seriously won't come. So, because Athens is not big, Mel, too, and that's a big part of it too. It's and also in Athens GA, if you're involved with sports and you're successful, they have a reverence for you, whether it's football, tennis, swimming, whatever. But I've gotten around a little bit, and I've done a little, I do a lot of talks here on campus within certain schools, a business school, English department. I was an English major. And so I don't know how it all happened, but I just got a lot of friends, but it's mostly a tribute to the people that are here. And, it's a neat town because it's a good music town too. And because I had Mike Mills from REM, he gave out the awards on Saturday night in '99 when we had the NCAAs. Christy Kowal set the American record. She was more excited about Mike Mills giving her the award. And, but he, because of those connections too, you find yourself in places that have nothing to do with swimming. And I think that's helped me coach for a really long time.
I think you mentioned that if you achieve success, you appreciate success in all fields.
Yeah.
And what I see with coaches is that you see them spend so much time on deck. It feels like a lonely existence. You're up there, your athletes are head submerged underwater, but it is a monk-like existence. But you see the mastery, and it's about achieving mastery, and you achieve it over a lifetime. And I sit in awe of folks like yourself. But I look for it everywhere.
It takes, that's a good thing to do too, right? Because it helps us in everything we do. But, I had an awful lot of help. I think I had great friends I was coaching with. I was coaching with Frank Bush. I was coaching with Eddie. I've been on many trips, with Terry McKeever starting in 2003 when I was head coach for Worlds. And I remember a really special moment when Terry and Frank and I were in some little courtyard out in Barcelona. And it was just, we had an hour and a half of just laughing, and, sort of those things bring you together. But John Urbanchek also had a gigantic influence on the way I trained people. He gave me a lot of rhyme and reason. I was with Dick Schulberg in 79. When I got the job, Mel, I was smart enough to realize I knew nothing. So I went up to Philadelphia. And so, and I worked with Dick Schulberg in 1979 and 1980. And I remember Dick, at the end of the year, we went doubles. This is Coach Schulberg, 5 days a week, 5 hours on Saturday, and just 3.5 to 4 hours on Sunday. And I remember for that summer, he gave me a camera, which I think came out of his pocket, that money. So we basically, back then you sort of coached for free. The next year for the entire summer, I remember, I think Dick gave me $800, and I bet you it was his money. But being on deck with him, and it just taught me a lot. And I think the best way you actually learn is just watching and listening. And the great people don't really have to tell you much. And but and then being and Eddie and I, we've have an amazing relationship in lots of ways. So when he came here, we went quail hunting. When I went there, we went duck hunting. And so we always tried to put fun in it. And I think that was really important. I talked to Frank Bush just yesterday. I'll be talking with Eddie probably next week, and Coach Schulberg, Dick, I got to give him a call about a couple of things. And it's just I'm missing a couple of people here, but I was fortunate. I had Don Sonia, a great coach at Philadelphia Aquatic Club, and Tom Williams, who was sort of a little bit had a lot of foresight as a coach at Abington YMCA. I started in the YMCA, and then Mel, this is so cool. I think one guy, and I don't know where his name was Abe Abramson, and he had a Alfa Romeo, and he was our lifeguard at our club. It was a swim club, not a country club, just a swim club. We had a swimming pool, snack bar, and a tetherball place, and I just fell in love with him. He was, he looked like an Adonis, right? And he had his sports car. I was about 6 or 7. He taught me butterfly, and all I did about half the day was go in front of him to try to impress and go back and forth. But all of a sudden, he might have changed things in a way that he made me like swimming. And the biggest thing was he took an interest in me. So, and that was the most important thing.
I feel a little bit ashamed because I should have known this. And I was looking into your background, and I was like, what? You had the school record in the 200 fly?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Come on, you're a brother.
Yeah, I am, but somewhat. But I'm not saying what the time was. But I will say it would probably would be 10th on my women's team right now.
You remember the time. You remember the time to the 100th.
Oh yeah, I remember times all the time. But let's say this: Flick and Mary DeCenza would have not been worried about me at all. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I'm gonna chalk that up to all of your wisdom and discipline that was all formed in those formative years,
Yeah.
sharpening your knife on 200 butterfly.
Oh yeah, I loved it. And the best set I had when I was growing up was an 8.64 to 2 long course meters. And now Don Sonia gave me that, and I sort of reveled in it. You know, an interesting thing happened when I came to Georgia, Mel. Not many people know. The assistant coach here was responsible for me because I was middle distance or whatever. But my coach was John Stafford, who was Matt Stafford's dad. And it's funny how the cycle turns here. So Matt's dad, you know, who just won the Super Bowl, obviously, and it was a quarterback here. But John was getting his master's in phys ed here before, and I had him for my freshman and sophomore years, and it was no accident that they were my best years because he worked me really hard, and I wasn't that talented. So, and I loved him, and vice versa. We have a great relationship, but you know, he really loved coaching me, and I love being coached by him. But it was so important. So when he left, I wasn't as good because I sort of lost my connection in a way too. But I had nothing but great experiences through high school and college. I was in a great high school team, LaSalle College High School up in Philadelphia. I think between my junior year and senior year, we had about 7 or 8 kids go off on full rides, Division I. So it was a good school, and it was a great school athletically. We had 2 NBA Hall of Famers right from our high school too. So it's pretty cool spot, and I remain very connected to my high school still. Yeah.
It's you had this full experience, and you have all these moments that are crisp. They're right there, and you know, they're filed really well.
Yeah.
And you know what inspired you. You know what motivated you. You know when you benefited from it and when you didn't.
Yeah.
So how did you carry that into your career? And you know what, you know, when a talent walks onto your pool deck, and you've just 87 Olympians, you know, what is it that you're hoping to do when you kindle that relationship and you go, okay, we're about to climb Mount Everest?
Well, I think athletes, and I didn't really do this on purpose. I just sort of naturally like people, I think, anyhow. And I just sort of liked the kids I was coaching. And you know, I knew a little bit. I told them I wanted to know a lot about them in a way. I didn't want to know what they did when I wasn't around, you know, but they're 18 or 19, and they needed their own space and they needed to grow up. But I certainly was interested in what they did academically, what they did, who they were with, what they did. And, you know, it's an interesting thing. You know, when you go into a home, you find out everything about an athlete. And when you sit there, and I've said this in a couple of coaching meetings here on recruiting, when this is when you know you're getting really old, when they have you talk to younger coaches when they come in. And but I always tell them, I said, it's really important when you do a home visit, just watch how the athlete treats their mother and father. And because that's the gigantic indicator of how you're going to be treated. So I will tell you, I backed out of a few after home visits. And then, but also I remember a young lady, Kelsey Gade, who was on our national championship team in 2013. And she was a captain along with Schmitty too. And, but she came in completely unheralded. But when I went to her home, I thought she was like burning a hole through me. She was listening to everything I said. And I actually changed my offer at that dinner table when we were talking. And I added room or board, I can't remember which. And and sure as heck, she turned out to be a gigantic part of that national championship team. And those kids are neat. You know, we have, and some of the walk-ons too, Mel. I mean, Chris Brearton, as you know Chris, and his role now is president of the board for USA Swimming, and he was a walk-on with me. He's now, you know, CEO of MGM. And I just got off the phone this morning. One of my formers, Barry Wynn, who was from, he was on our team that got third in NCAA's, the men's team. He's a vice president of Procter and Gamble. He gave me a call he's working in Costa Rica, taking care of everything for Procter and Gamble in Costa Rica. So, and I'll see him next month because I'm going on a surf trip with Chris Davis down there. So, but all those guys and all those kids that come in, I think that getting back to your question, and believe me, I haven't forgotten it, I think if you take an interest in them, and it's easy to do, and it's, and you sort of, and you like them more. And I always enjoyed the banter too. I mean, you remember Mark Dilla, who's probably, Mark Dilla to me might have done the most satisfying swim in my career. Maybe not the most important, because his freshman year, he was second to Neil Stovall, our swimmer. And then second year, he lost to Fraser, the kid from Florida, by about a tenth or less. Third year, he came from behind and won it, and they disqualified him. And I'll tell you what, that was a hard year. And then he came back and came from behind on Tommy Shields up in Minneapolis and won his senior year. But he had to live with that, a disqualification when you won, which was unwarranted. I mean, I've never saw him touch with one hand, even like in practice at 5:30. But, those kids really make things fun for you. But you also go through a heck of a lot. People forget, Christy, when she set the American record and medaled in 2000, she got third by 1/100th in the 100 breaststroke. So you go through wars, and then you come out the other side. And I think if, when you and I are talking here, if any swimmers are listening and need to learn one thing, that the more committed you are, the more you're going to have a bigger disappointment at some point in time. And that will actually sort of shape you and what you're going to be, because how you react to that is what you're going to do and how you're going to be successful. But you're never going to have a great career. Even recruiting, when I go in at home, Mel, I always say, if you're coming here, I said, I'm just going to let you know, it's not going to be a perfect ride. And I think it's really important that kids know that some things probably will go wrong, but it happens to everybody.
The greatest lesson in greatness, in the process of greatness, is to fail as much as you can.
Yep. And as you well know, when you're shooting for big things, it's going to happen more often. Yeah. And, people talk about our 7 national championships. I remember our 8th. We had 8 second places too, some of which I was really proud of. Sometimes we went into that meet thinking we're supposed to be 5th. I think we've only had one number 1 recruiting class in my career, actually. And I'll never forget when I came back from one of them. Sometimes administrators don't really get it, and some of them do. And I've been blessed on many of them. And right now, the irony of it all, I wish I was going to be around for the athletic director we have now, Josh Brooks, who's wonderful. And I told him, I said, Josh, I'm sorry, but it's time. And because I walked in and he looked at my face, he goes, don't tell me. So, but I think, we got second one year, I think it was really close. And I get the text from one of our associate ADs, hang in there. That was it. Not congratulations. You're second best team in the country. Actually, I think we were probably the 5th, but we swam as well as we could. I was admonished by John Wooden one time when we were leaving for Sydney. We brought him into Pasadena to talk with the team, and he was old enough at that time where a lot of the swimmers sort of knew him, a lot of them didn't. Mel, but I was introducing my athletes to him. Christy was there, Courtney Shealy was there, and Kim Black, and and Joyce Stowers. Anyhow, and then I introduced Amanda Atkins to him. I said, Coach, this is my greatest overachiever. And he admonished me, actually said, no such thing. And he says, they only achieve what they're capable of. And I said, yes, sir. And it's a pretty good lesson there. So whenever I hear 110% and all that stuff, it's I always cringe a little bit, because 100 is always good enough. Yeah.
I have a question for you, just going back into the Jack Bauerle canon. So coming through it, got you through this lens. I swam with a guy, Eric Top, and Eric Top was not a talented swimmer. And Eric Top trained with me. He brought it every single day. It really just wasn't. He didn't have, we know who has the talent, who doesn't. Some people touch the water and they move through it like a dolphin.
Sure.
He finaled at the Olympic trials in 92. And I was like, that guy, I won. I had a great swim. But I knew in my heart, I had so much admiration for him because I knew that what he had sacrificed to get there was so much more than I had. Mm-hmm. Who in your experience had that type of experience in the sport, and you were like, wow, I have so much respect for this kid. They brought it every day.
Mark Diller was one. He was athletic, but he was just tough every day. Peter Veerhoff, who now coaches at Bulls, Peter he wanted to swim a little bit more. I love Peter, and he was a great captain. And sometimes he was one of those guys who took being a captain very seriously. And sometimes that's harder on athletes. They have to not be swallowed up by being a captain. But I think, and he was one of those guys. I remember talking to him. I said, Peter's, not everybody does what you do every day. And, but he was so serious, and he ended up finding, like you were talking about Eric, he finaled in 100 fly, and that was great. That was like making an Olympic team. And but those type of kids are really important. And some of the walk-on type kids that, we had sometimes, Mel, here's what we're talking about, disappointments. I had a young lady, Claire Moss, who qualified first in 2008 in the 500 in prelims. And 2005, we had 20 young ladies, 21 maybe, make the meet, qualify for the meet. 2005 was our best team by far. We won. That was the first team to win all 5 relays. And here's a young lady, and I knew she was good, but I couldn't even take her that year. Here she was, like a sophomore, or maybe a freshman at that time, and she was and she was singularly one of the sweetest and nicest kids I've ever coached in my entire life. And she took it, and then she came up and watched the meet up in Purdue, and then she's, she handled that and said, the heck with that, and then she went 4:38, back in 2007 or 8 or whatever it was, and guess what? That wasn't bad then, but you love kids that react like that. And matter of fact, ironically or not, we just talked about Peter and Claire, and both of them are coaching. So
it's we've seen a lot of peers who have Olympic medals, and they'll coach, but it seems like it's always those athletes who were in the bottom of the final, or maybe in the consolation, or maybe just it seems to me they always make the best coaches. And my theory on that is that certain athletes, things are just intuitive, things just happen, and they don't, they can go from A to Z, and they can miss all those letters in between because it's just natural. But it seems like when someone maybe doesn't have that talent, they're cognizant of every single inch. And maybe there's something deeper to it. I'd like to, if there is something more to it, I'd like to know. You would know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you look around, if you go right across the board on the coaches, male and female, they were pretty good, but not great. And maybe left something that they wanted to accomplish yet, in the sport. Who knows? I think, things get complicated sometimes upstairs. And but I think the people that really do work for it and really have to do everything correctly are the ones that probably are the best coaches. Now, if you talk to Eddie, he'll tell you he was a great swimmer too, but we'll get to that. So
I'm so thankful that you didn't break that pool record in the 200 butterfly at Georgia, and to say, I'm going to hang the suit up now and go have another career. Here's the thing. if you had, was there potential for another iteration? Is there another timeline where you have this other career? What would that be? Does that exist, or was it always going to be head coach at the University of
You mean
Georgia?
when I started, what else I could have done?
Yeah. What else could have you? Would you have done something else?
Yeah, in hindsight, there's only one other thing I would have done probably. Um, and two things actually, because I love sports. I love every sport. And I mean, I can talk baseball here for hours and hours and hours, and basketball and football. I love them all. And I played 3 sets of tennis today. I love tennis too. But I think there's one thing, and the reason why I got recruited pretty heavily when I was a young kid by the Air Force. And it was interesting. It's too long a story for here, but the guy, and along the way, Mel, I look at these people that had something to do with me. I met him on a beach in Long Beach Island, New Jersey, when I was a freshman in high school. He thought I was a football player. I was playing football, but he told me what he liked was every time he was on the beach, I was organizing a game. So anyhow, I was when I came out of the water, I was in the water probably 8 hours a day. You came out, you wanted to play something. I never sat on a beach in my lifetime. But he recruited me very heavily. At the same point in time, he also was the one that probably convinced me not to go and do it and run with it, because I said, Colonel, I'm only about 80-20. He said, then Jackson, he always called it Jackson. His name was Colonel Furry. He was from Bernardsville High School, and he was a recruiter. But he taught me a neat lesson. He said, if it's 80-20, don't even bother. You have to be 100% in, because even the ones that are 100% sometimes don't make it. But that would have been a cool existence. And I got a little nostalgic about it last night when I saw Top Gun, the second one. But also brought me back to him, because he stayed in touch with me for 20 years after that, even after I didn't go. So that's a good guy. And he was there. He was trying to help me. He was trying to do something for the Air Force, but it was a friendship first. And so the guys like that along the way taught me a lot, about coaching. He was a really neat man. One of the greatest things, and this is a walk-on story too, Mel. When I was a freshman here, sophomore, we had a walk-on. Roger Simpson was a walk-on guy, and I loved him. He was funny. And there's a peer, like a hierarchy on teams sometimes. And a lot of our guys didn't even bother talking to him. Well, he ended up as an ultra successful guy. And he had a schooner that he went around the world on. He had a jet that was the replica of the Mirage, which was a fighter jet for France, which was sort of like RF-14, I believe. But so the day after we won our first national championship in '99, he flew down in about an hour from Ann Arbor with that jet. And the next morning, and I hadn't slept the entire day, you know how that goes. Excuse me. And he took me up. Pressure suit, everything else. So that was a heck of a 24 hours. Our first national championship that was done here at the pool I'm looking at out there. And then he takes me up, and the first thing we did, a couple of 360s that took 1 second to go around. And then he blacked me out twice on it. And then the second, he said, now, Jack, you got to hold on a little bit. And he took me straight. We went straight up for 1 mile, and you can't see anything because the wings are back here. You only see sky. And all of a sudden after that, he said, he's talking, I'm in the front cockpit, and he's in the back. He said, now you got to hang on. And he said, and when we come down, he said, try to grab the joystick in front of you. So he went up, and then he took it backwards, and we went back down, and just sort of dropped and did a free fall. And I was trying to grab that stick, and because of the G-forces, I couldn't even get near it. Those guys are incredible, and in those jets. And we did that, and he let me chase. When we sort of leveled out, we went back up a few times. We did some other crazy things, and he let me twice. I was next year when we won again. He came back and did it again, and we went. He let me chase clouds, and I was flying a jet, going around. I mean, and I'll tell you what, that is singularly the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. that's a hell of a feeling. So, but anyhow,
Maybe you missed your calling. Maybe you did miss your calling. I mean, I
I
know
think,
the swimming thing has been successful, but
yeah.
maybe you were Maverick.
I tell you what, that appealed to me. Yeah. And, but anyhow, it's amazing how things turn out here. And, when I came down here, Mel, I was the only kid north of the Mason-Dixon line on the team. And it was a different world. But you lived in the South, so you know it. And but back in 1970, coming from Philadelphia, it was a very different world. And but I'll tell you what, the South is welcoming. And there was never a holiday where I didn't have a few homes to go to. And I'll tell you what, I had to, I have friends, some of my best friends to this day are the ones I had met my first month at school. One of whom, I don't know if I should say this or not, but anyhow, this is pretty cool. I had a young lady, Kathleen Williamson, we went out, like when I first got here, first week. I'll be seeing her in March because of, NCAs, I never could help her. Her father owned a newspaper in Darien, Georgia. So this is like Philadelphia guy meeting a young lady from Darien. She was so cool and is still pretty darn cool. And she was a great, anyhow, we remained friends for a lifetime. And but she owns the newspaper down in Darien. She's like the first lady and Darien is actually the shrimping capital of Georgia. It's a whole, and it's a beautiful little town with the backwaters that are about as soulful as you can be. But I'll be going down there. It looks like, I think it's going to be this March. And I think I'll be Grand Marshal for the blessing of the shrimping fleet. So something I've always wanted to do.
You're a celebrity. I'm trying to think, have we ever had a celebrity coach, a D1 coach, an Olympic coach that has been invited to give the commencement speech at their school? Does that happen before?
I don't know, Mel. I don't, but I have to seriously tell you, that was the most humbling thing that's ever happened to me. I'm forever thankful to our president. And to me, it was my greatest honor. And it was a little bit different because you had that speech was for everyone else and not, it wasn't for self-promotion. You're not talking about UGA swimming and, you're usually doing a talk somewhere. That was for graduates. And it was really fun. And I've talked to at least 20 that were there and a lot of parents too. And it's amazing what's happened with graduations now. They've grown. Like when I graduated, my mom said, I remember being on the phone. She goes, "So when are you coming back?" So, that was the way it was. I didn't have one friend that walked through graduation. But for every person that goes, every graduate, they average 10 guests now that come. So it was in the bottom half of our stadium and it was about 18,000 people. And it was almost like the planets aligned because it was sort of misty. And then all of a sudden, literally after we had a breakfast meeting before we went out and went over everything, we got our full regalia on. And then you walk out and suddenly the sun just came out. It was about 50. It was perfect. And a friend of mine, it got even better than that. A friend of mine was a tennis player here, George Besekny. He was in the finals of the NCAs, and he was Jack Nicklaus's practice partner. So Jack Nicklaus's granddaughter was here. So anyhow, it ended up, George called me and we got them organized. So they came after we finished and went off. We went to the luncheon, and it's at the west end of our stadium, where we spent about $80 million for a place to be able to eat. And so Jack was there with his family. They had about 18 people with him. So, and I brought back two of my professors from the University of Georgia that changed my life. I would not have made it through school without both of them. And they were both English professors. So we had this luncheon, and my professors were there. And, I was there with the president, my wife, my kids came, and it was just one of the neatest moments in my lifetime. It was just, it was, I don't know how that happened, but, and I said this part of the speech, I think my second thing I said was, in the fall of 1970, I could not have been further from this podium. So, but anyhow, those two professors, Tom Tuggle and Jerry Chambers, saved me at the University of Georgia. They gave, again, you get lessons along the way. They had nothing to gain. I wasn't going to write the great American novel in English. And they were great professors, and they had me over at their house when I was a junior and senior. And they told me, get this professor, you'll like him. And they understood if I liked somebody, I would work. And if I didn't, I probably didn't. And I wasn't the perfect student, but I ended up as a pretty darn good one at the end because of them.
Commencement speaker. Just for everyone out there, I watched it.
Did you? Cool.
I watched it. I mean, it was such an unusual thing. It's like, well, this is a huge honor. So I watched it when it went live on YouTube. I watched it again the day we got the news that you were retiring. And because I thought that I'd have you on an interview within 24 hours, I needed to be ready. I didn't know it'd be so much time later. I watched it, but for anyone out there that's just listening now to the podcast, you can press pause. You can go into our show notes. I'm going to add the link in there so you can see this commencement speech. And here's a teaser. Jack saying he didn't honor. It wasn't about swimming. It was for the students. But I think that you represented swimming and your program really well. I think swimmers will really appreciate what you said.
Yeah. And I think we talked about one of the little quirks in there. I guess you have to have a hook at some point in time, and called a PC, persistence and consistency. And I think that's what takes all athletes to the promised land. And, if there's a consistent theme in my athletes, the ones that are the most successful is that they're consistently pretty good. And they don't let themselves have what I call real bad days. They just know how to figure it out. So that was a big theme of that. And also a big theme was that you'll not get anywhere without somebody helping you. And it's a big deal. Mel, you mind if I tell you a quick story about a doctor?
Absolutely. Give it to us.
I was with a doctor friend of mine last night for dinner. He's an amazing surgeon. And he's retired. He played football here, and he was our team doctor for 30 years. And I went to see him at a, sort of a assisted living place, but it's not an assisted living place. It looks like a pretty swish country club to me. But anyhow, we were talking about it, and we talked about the power that doctors have. And I think coaches do too. I think we forget that we're in such a position of responsibility. And what you do is being looked at, how you live is being looked at, what you say is being heard more than you probably think. And, but I was, at 10 years old, I had a rough time with asthma. And I had to get a shot every 2. That's when shots actually hurt. And when I get a shot now, they say, "Oh, I said, don't worry, this is nothing." Because those needles back then were a little bit different. But every 2 weeks, we go in, and afterwards, my mom and doctors always brought your parent in with you and said a couple of things, and then you left. And Dr. Gallagher, he was the team doctor for LaSalle College basketball. He said, Grace, my mom's name, he said, Grace, if you could give me 1 minute with Jackie. And he said, Jackie, just write your name down here. And I did it every time for 2 years. And he said, just want to have your autograph because you're going to do something special someday. And I said, so I walked out of there, and I was always small. I'm still small for my age. And I felt empowered when I left there. And what a thing to say to a little kid. And I look back on that, and I said it was probably one of the most important moments of my life, and it was when I was 10. And it's a lesson. I'm getting ready to go out here for our swim camp, the last one we're having, my last one, and we always, we have a pretty big responsibility, and we can really change and just positively impact somebody with very few words. And I mean, that took 30 seconds and I did it every time. I knew it was coming and it was fun, but always be thankful for him. He was a great man.
Well, I told you we're going to be 30 to 40 minutes. I don't want to hold you too long. If you get to peel away for your campers.
No, I'm good. They're just meandering in. I'm going to be talking with them in a few minutes, about 10 or 15.
All right, good. So I have to ask, and we're SwimSwam is based out of Austin, Texas, so we're real close to Eddie. It's like if I go out there was a moment where I went out to dinner once. Yeah, it was New Year's Eve, and that's my wedding anniversary is New Year's Eve. My wife's like, our anniversary. The rule is no one says the word swimming, and we're at some restaurant, and Eddie and his wife sit down behind
Eleanor,
us. Yeah. So so anyway, Eddie's Eddie retired for a year and then came back. But I knew from talking to Eddie that it was Eddie wants to coach, but he just didn't want to deal with the admin and all the other stuff that goes with it. He wants to be on deck, he wants to do just that. So I kind of have an insight, and you probably do too. Mm-hmm. But it begs the question: what are you going to do? Are you going to be on deck? David Marsh stepped away at Auburn, and now he's doing the assistant thing at Cal, and looks like he might do that in another year, maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying I know that. I'm just saying that's a possibility. But what are you going to do?
I'm going to skirt this a little bit, and I usually, because I sort of have a little bit of an idea, but I can't say much yet. But I will remain connected to the program for sure. And Eddie. And I feel the same way. The coaching part, Mel, I could coach until I was 90. I love it. I love being on deck. I love being with the coaches, and the weird part is I love the morning practices the best. There's a great old Bob Dylan line in one of his songs I love doing, and he almost has a line for every occasion. And it was one of them. He said, "Too many thoughts get in the way of the day." And the morning was great because the kids are not confused yet about how much stuff they have to do. They haven't read anything about who they are and what they could be. And it's sort of the purest time in swimming, I think, early morning practices. But being with Eddie is a joy. And we had so much, it was always interesting because I don't know if you ever knew this, but when we went on trips, when we started, we had a lot of money now in USA Swimming. So the coaches got private rooms. And Eddie and I didn't want it. We always roomed together. They said, "Seriously?" He said, "No, we're rooming together. We have fun." And so we've done a lot of trips together. And but I think I have some things in mind. It's amazing. The first 24 hours were filled with offers of things to do. And I was stunned. And it was like this: "Congratulations, but I want to talk to you about something else." But there's some things that intrigue me a little bit, and I've had some conversations about some things. The bottom line is it's going to be involved with trying to be. I wouldn't mind being involved in things that help the University of Georgia. Georgia gave me my life, and I owe not just athletics, but I owe Georgia, the University of Georgia. And I feel I will do anything that I'm asked to do here if they need me doing anything. And then the athletic department too. Like after I have camp, we have a lot of buddies here that some of our biggest donors, and I know they like me being around. I just like being around them because they're fun. But some of whom have taken care of my boys are going to get a real awakening now that they're getting older and they don't have seats on the court, and then they're not in the sky suites. They're going to when I'm long gone, they're going to appreciate their father a little bit better. But I think whatever it is, it will be people based. And I do want to do a little bit. I enjoy radio immensely. And I do a couple of shots here in Athens. So when my walk-on music is the theme from Rocky, because he's the Philly guy here, but that part of things, I really enjoy that. And you know how neat it is. Just, this is the longest conversation you and I get to have for forever. I mean, it's neat because, you and I come and go like sheep in the night. That's an old Archie Bunker. He thought he had his maltropism, said, I love that one. 2 ships in the night. So it's like 2 sheep in the night. And, but you never get a chance. And so like just having this conversation is pretty neat. And so we get to just talk about things that we like to talk about.
Well, I tell everybody my Jack story, and I consider myself to be very disciplined. I weigh what I weighed when I won Olympic gold.
Yeah.
I work hard. I work hard at what I do. It's now, we're not great. We're just trying to achieve excellence in the process.
Yeah.
So I'm in Olympic trials. We're in the same hotel, going down in the mornings to work out in the gym, because you work out, you exercise because that creates energy and that keeps you going through the day.
Yeah.
I walk into the gym, you're there. I'm not saying you're way older than I am, but I'm the spring chicken in this relationship. But you're there working out. And I would leave every morning and you would still be working out. And so that's one part of the story that I always share, my Jack Bauerle story. It's like Jack was in the gym when I got there and Jack was in the gym when I left. And I always say that in 2016, it seemed like there were some other coaches that were getting a lot of ink, a lot of media. And when I was looking at apples to apples, I'm like, Jack in Virginia, looks like you're going to put more people on the team than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I just remember you going, yeah, we're doing really well. I'm smiling. We're smiling every day. And then by the end of the meet, finally, those guys at SwimSwam started writing about it. I'm like, yeah, you're catching this story a little late, guys.
Yeah. We felt a little overlooked. But I never say anything about it. It doesn't really matter in the long run. What matters is those kids made the team, right? So, but we had a heck of Olympic trials, and then in 21, boom, we had another one. And but anyhow, it's a good story, and that discipline that you have, it's an important thing, and we have to. I always felt as a coach, we had to carry ourselves in such a way and be an example too. It sounds old fashioned, but I think it's fairly important. I really do. But it's fun stuff. But probably all that exercise is the reason I feel sore all over all the time now. But it takes us a while. We have it when I play tennis with my group. We have one rule: no one can talk about any ailment, because everyone has one, at least one. So we just nobody talks about it. So. I'm limping, but that's okay. We don't care.
All right, we're winding down. I'm going to let you go, but I did want to say this. I appreciate the professionalism at UVA and the way
UGA.
Excuse me, UGA. Whoa,
yeah, that's okay. Mark Bernardino and I, Mel, swam against each other from the age of 8 and 9.
Oh wow, good man.
We were great buddies. Yeah. It was really, really cool, and I remain. In all of him, how he coaches. He's a great coach. And anyhow, I've been around him. Then we went to Catholic high schools, rival Catholic high schools, swam the same thing. He went to UVA, I went to UGA, boom. Yeah.
Well, it's why I appreciate that my flub gave them a guest shot in your podcast. But I have a lot of respect for UGA and SID and just how the program's been run. I know it's like a business. You're managing scholarships, you're managing a big team. I felt like the transition from you and the announcement on the coaches, the new coaches. Do you have any parting thoughts? I know we got Neil and we got Stefanie. The programs are split apart.
Yeah.
What's going to happen there? Are you going to mentor? Are you going to still be around mentor?
Yeah, I'm going to mentor, and I'll probably be in a position where I can. We're just working that part of it out. How much. But one thing I don't want to do. It's their team. I respect that. And I've tried to. I'm here when they need me, and I'll be probably on deck a little bit more, just watching or helping, and I'm going to mentor some of the athletes that I think have great things in mind for themselves. And I think, if we're still working out with her, I'll be a volunteer. I'd be a pretty good, I'd be a good hire as a free coach. And anyhow, we'll just do it. We're still working that out, but I am proud of them. They're game ready. And both of them, as you know, Mel, came by their success because of what we talked about, just that persistent hard work. Steph was 28-time All-American here. And then Neil was an NCAA champion and an NCAA record holder, 200 breasts. But more than anything else, they're great people. And I feel like I felt a little bit old right when I retired, because even though I don't feel old at all, but all of a sudden you feel like these are your children and you're proud of them because they've earned their spot, and we are in great hands. And I think, it's time. It's good. It's good. And it's going to be a great infusion of youth. And I think it's timely for the program. I think it was time for me to do what I did, and it's time for them to take over.
Well, I feel like that I've always had access to you and your friendship and your space in this swimming family. And it makes me insecure that might change a little bit. I don't know if it is or not. Maybe it won't. But
that's just up to us. We just don't let it sneak.
Final question. Is it how do you want people to remember you in your entire career? What's something you want them to take away from you and your relationship to this sport?
Well, let's see. That's a good question. I just, simply, like when I was at the grocery store this morning, someone came and said, "Jack, thank you for doing a really good job." And you know what? That's probably takes care of everything. I felt like it was a huge responsibility representing Georgia. And, I fell in love with this place the day I got here. And I think I'll be remembered as someone that probably, coached all right, but also loved and cared about their athletes. And I love being, you could tell, I thought it was fun. It was fun being around them, and they're all different. And that was the cool part too, because a lot of different buttons to push sometimes, but at some point in time, and the greatest thing is after they finish, and then your relationship changes completely. And there hasn't been a day since that retirement where I haven't been on the phone with at least 2 or 3 former ones. And boy, I tell you what, they've given me as much as I have given them.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.